All right, this is my study area. I had to turn the light on because it's kind of dark and gloomy out today. So I've got the windows closed and everything closed on the windows because it was dark and rainy and all this stuff. So this is the class right here. This is my big study Bible. And this is the class that I'm taking. It's called Turning the Page. So inside of here I made a lot of little post-it notes on things that I don't agree with. So I was actually doing this yesterday, so let me show you, because I did leave a couple post-it notes from yesterday. So you can see that we have to read, and it has questions, and sometimes it'll say, hey, go check out this chapter or this verse, read this, study a little bit, and then it has questions. So part of this is going through the different names of God that are being presented in certain places in the Bible, and then just questions. And so we have to fill these questions out according to what they say. Okay, so what they're putting in this content. So let me explain that, and let me show you just an example of that. So there's a post-it note from the other day. These are what I just did yesterday. Okay, so this is the questions that I filled out. So we start off by some reading. So this here starts the reading on this Jehovah Nissi, which I've never heard before, but apparently that's someplace in the Bible. So we just have to read through this and all that. And then we get into the questions. So this is probably going to help out. This will probably help you if you're in a place where you can do some of this and look up some of these scriptures. And then we get into the questions. So let's see. So first of all, let me take this one off. Let's see. I'm not sure if you can read it. The Israelites question whether God... Okay, so this is coming from Exodus 17. Okay. And then it says the Israelites questioned whether God was even with them. But when the Amalekites, those guys attacked from behind, they discovered very quickly that God was in fact with them. In verse 9, Moses tells Joshua, choose us out men. I think that's a misprint. Anyways, the story is they just got done crossing the river and they don't have any water. So they're complaining to Moses about not having any water, saying that we're going to die of thirst, all this. But then the Amalekites, or whatever these guys are, decide to come to kill him and to fight him and do battle. And so Moses goes up on a hill and he tells Joshua, go out, grab some men and go out and fight. So the story in Exodus 17 is when Moses goes up to the hill, he holds up his hands, and every time that he holds up his hands, the Israelites were winning. But every time he dropped his hands, the Amalekites were winning. And so they had a couple guys up there with Moses that were holding his hands up in the air. Okay, so I'm going strictly by scripture. Now, some of this might be, okay, here's the fact that we need to be a little bit nitpicky with scripture. Like, does it say this? Does it say this? Or are we trying to go and take it from the overall context, the bigger meaning of what the context and what the story is, right? So anyways, I have this note that I left. It says nothing about attacking from behind. This paragraph right here is saying, but when these guys attacked from behind, they discovered very quickly that God was in fact with them. If you go back and read this, and again, I referenced that to my Geneva Bible, but I also read it out of my study Bible, which this is my study Bible, but I read it out of my New International Version Bible here, which is also my study Bible. Okay, it does not say anything about attacking from behind. Okay, that was included, that was interjected in this paragraph in this context. It says nothing about being attacked from behind in that scripture. Nowhere. Second part of this is I'm going through this. So it says in verse 9, Moses tells Joshua to choose your men, which implies that he needed to choose. I'm going to have to move this. Oh, the guy's stuck down pretty good. Sticky. All right, implies that he needed to choose men who were strong and courageous, ready to go out and fight. The question is, how long do you think Joshua thought about Moses' instructions before he obeyed? Okay, well, that one was an easy question. I think, let's see, okay, so I think we're coming down here to this. Because I had this sticky note over, I think the sticky note here is pertaining to this paragraph. Sorry, this is a long video. Moses then took Aaron and Hur, the two guys, with him up to a high hill overlooking the battlefield. It didn't say anything about a high hill, it just said a hill in Scripture. Anyone who has ever battled with the enemy knows it's a good idea to take a friend or two along. See, they're I don't know. They're interjecting things that should not be here. Just that last sentence. Anyone who's ever battled with an enemy knows it's a good idea to take one or two good friends along with you. That is the dumbest thing that I've ever heard. Moses climbed the highest hill, and as he raised his hands, holding up the rod God gave him, Israel began to triumph. So every time he held his hands high, first of all, my first question is, in Scripture it says that he held his hands up. Tell me how he's supposed to do that when he has this staff, this stick in his hands. It doesn't say anything about that in Scripture. So this is my question with that. It says nothing about the highest hill in Scripture, which it says in this paragraph that they're interjecting. It doesn't say anything about a high hill or the highest hill. It just says a hill. He went up to a hill. That's all it says. I'm going by Scripture, okay? That's it. I'm going by Scripture. So it says nothing about the highest hill. It's just a hill. Nor does it say anything about the staff being used in his hands. It says in Scripture that Moses was holding his hands up. There's no place in this Scripture in Exodus 17 that talks about Moses having the staff in his hands when he had his hands raised. Nowhere. These guys are interjecting things, and they did it the same place a couple weeks ago. We were talking about how Moses had cleared the path through the Red Sea, it was maybe another place. They'd come to a river or something like that, and they couldn't drink because the water was bitter. I don't remember. It was somewhere. It's back here a couple weeks. I don't remember exactly where it was, but it said the water was bitter, and that God told Moses to throw in a piece of wood or an old piece of a tree or a branch or something like that. To where the context here, somebody was trying to say that was supposed to be significant and relevant as a symbol of Jesus and the cross. And so after Moses threw this piece of wood into the river, it sweetened the river and they were able to drink from it. Okay, if you go back on Scripture, it says, I don't know, that was off in left field. To me, that was a pretty far stretch to say that was somehow symbolizing the cross that Jesus got crucified on. They've been doing things like this in this book this entire time. And I've been leaving Post-it notes like this, and I've been answering my questions on paper like this because I'm going to give this book back to them. And so they can read all of my text when this group is done. They might say, hey, yeah, you can keep this book if you want to. I'm going to give it back to them, and I'm going to see if somebody opens this up to read it and to read my footnotes. I've already mentioned this stuff in class. because it makes no sense. They're interjecting things that are not in Scripture. And it's stupid. I'm sorry, but it is. And so I'm struggling with that. I understand the bigger concepts of what's being taught here. I do. But they're interjecting things that aren't there. That's my 2 cents. That's my struggle. And this is my little cubby hole on the couch where I've got all my study stuff. This is just a year 1 Bible that I've been using for church. Been studying that a little bit. That's a different one. That's the New Living, and this is the New King James. This is Vital Men's Group. So every time on Wednesday nights, we get a printout, kind of the same deal. So we're going through Romans on Vital Men's Group. And yeah, this is just kind of where I hang out and study and read and all that stuff. There's my living room right there. I've got my PA up for sale. No takers yet. Here's my PA. So what do you think on that? What's your thoughts on that? I'm sorry it was a long video. We'll talk to you soon.